Hey, I'm going to talk to you about what's going on in the sky right now, and then I'm going to pull some cards. At the moment, I have deleted all the videos on my channel, aside from if you have a personal private reading with me, those are still up. And one of the things that I'm doing right now, I'm very much practicing. So if you're here, know that. Um, and one of the other things I'm doing right now is trying to say less, which you'll notice that I sometimes succeed at that, and sometimes I fail to do so. So if at any point I sound cryptic or you something catches your interest and you want more information, this is stuff I love to talk about. So email me, call me. Those are the best ways to get a hold of me. I mean, I suppose you could comment on the video. Um, that might work too. Okay, so with that out of the way, there is something happening in the sky right now that I'm really excited about, and I've been talking about it for a while. It's not a, you're not going to blink and miss it. It's Jupiter in Cancer. And if you have been around me for any length of time and like in person, I will have spoken to you about this, especially if you ask me about astrology at all. So Jupiter transits take about a year. In astrology and the New Age, a lot of people get really excited about Jupiter because he is an archetype that is associated with expansion and abundance and wealth and higher mind stuff. He's affiliated with the sign of Sagittarius and the ninth house. And so this is like the quest for not something, the quest for the truth, the quest for fill in the blank here. Um, the the archetype has something to do with travel, religion, spirituality, publishing, higher knowledge, higher learning. Um, yeah, so Jupiter tends to be a popular guy, and one thing about him is that he expands whatever he touches, whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. So be aware of that. People tend to overinflate the more positive aspects of Jupiter and talk about him from that direction. But long story short, wherever Jupiter is, there are especially abundant opportunities. That's what I'm saying. And where Jupiter is the archetype of Cancer. He is currently transiting through Cancer. He's about 1/3 of the way through. He entered Cancer on June 9th, I believe it was, and he will be there until June 30th of 2026. Um, I'm talking to you about this transit for a reason, and that reason is that the archetype of Cancer is potentially one of the more demonized archetypes in our culture. And if Jupiter is there right now, we have this really beautiful opportunity to get in touch with the cancer medicine that is so desperately needed, in my opinion. But I also think that people are seeking it out. I have noticed that a lot of people are seeking emotional stability. They're seeking, wise women. They're seeking teachers or friends who are capable of being with difficult emotions and stuff related to having a difficult past collectively or individually. Cancer is an archetype that is also demonized because we are a conflict avoidant and disassociated culture. I'm speaking to you from the United States, so that's what I mean by we. But it goes broader than that. I just don't want to say that the whole world is the way that I am, right? Um, but cancer, if you've ever known a very Cancerian person, they can be demanding of your attention. And for that reason, a lot of people make fun of them and talk about how they're babies and how they can be toxic. These are just common stereotypes of people who have Cancer, sun, moon, rising, or maybe a stellium in Cancer. But one of the things that is so missing from the way that a lot of us interact with the world, or yeah, it's the ability to be with our emotions, the ability to be with what's happening in our body, and the connection between that and previous generations. And Cancer speaks to that directly. Um, Cancer rules the fourth house, and the fourth house is related to your family, your ancestry, your roots. Cancer is a water sign. So we're talking about emotions, feelings, all of those things, which are not considered rational often, but for the most part, our feelings, our emotions are telling us pertinent information to whatever situation it is that we're in. And if you experienced something like me um, in your life, you probably blocked out your emotions and your feelings up to a certain point. Um, And after that point, you gradually started letting them back into your body and feeling them. And that transition likely changed the way that you interact with yourself and people and the world. But if those capacities are still blocked, which they are for a lot of people who are living in modernity, Jupiter in Cancer is a great time to explore allowing the feelings to come through and just being with them and not making them wrong. Um, yeah, so it's a beautiful time to get in contact with your feelings and your emotions, even if they don't necessarily feel the most comfortable in your body. Just allow them to flow through. I was talking a bit about attention earlier, and I'm going to say one last thing about that before I get off my Jupiter and Cancer soapbox. But there is, I've worked on the internet or, yeah, on the internet, which includes social media, my entire adult life. I have been a freelance person who does marketing and, yeah, mostly marketing at the end of the day. So I understand that technology, computers, social media, these are all just parts of our lives, but unless they're not, take what resonates. So attention, though, it's being mined, it is being exploited, it is being directed. Your attention is being directed. And if you are not consciously directing it, someone else is. Just be very aware of that when you're scrolling. If you scroll, um, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I just want you to be aware of that. I think that literally 100% of you already are aware of that. But the thing that I really want to direct your attention to is that Jupiter in Cancer. It's a great time to devote attention to your attention, reclaim it, bring it back. I wrote a whole article on this that I tend to write better than I speak. So I will just like drop that in the description box. The thing about Cancer, it's really, really important. And I don't want anyone to miss out on Jupiter and Cancer if they don't have to, because that wise woman that you're looking for, that guide, that counselor, that teacher, that crone, that elder, she is inside of you. Um, and I'll say more, I'll say more on Jupiter and Cancer if you want me to, but I'm gonna stop myself there. And I'm gonna show you these cards. Um, oh yeah, one more thing. Currently Jupiter is trining Mars, squaring Venus, trining Mercury. Yeah, trining Mars, squaring Venus, trining Mercury, squaring the Sun, trining Saturn, huge, huge. Sextiling Uranus, trining Neptune, and opposing Pluto, which again is huge. These are all, so if you don't know what that means, I'm not going to ramble on about it. I'm sure I'll be talking about what different aspects mean in some of my videos, so we'll get there. But know that Jupiter's interacting with all of these other archetypes in certain ways. So you may gain some clarity about Cancer, about that Jupiterian quest for the truth, and how those things connect. You may be gaining some clarity about those things depending on what happens within this tension that Jupiter is currently having, and will be having, because like a Jupiter Pluto opposition that's been happening for a little bit and it's going to continue to be happening for a little bit. Um, so some of these things I'm telling you about are kind of passing, and then some of them we're going to be staying in and staying with. Particularly with Pluto, it's a good thing because Pluto is dealing with the underworld and the unconscious and all sorts of shadow projection, control, issues of power, a lot of the time related to things we wish other people would take control over as well. There's a lot there. We'll have to do some kind of separate thing on Pluto. But yeah, I think if I had to pick one transit in the sky to talk to you about right now, it would be Jupiter in Cancer. And there's a lot of alchemy happening there behind the scenes. So just know if you're not having these revelations or whatever, because maybe there's a lot going on in your life right now, there's most likely work happening underneath that you don't necessarily see, or that pops into your conscious awareness. So no worries, nothing is passing you by. But if you do want to work consciously with Jupiter in Cancer, I think that's a really good idea. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Okay. All right. So the first card that I pulled that came out is the Lover's card. And there are so many ways to talk to you about this archetype here. My favorite way to talk about the Lover's card, or to think about the Lover's card, was the way that it sort of came out. This is the energy that it came out with for me. And that is an inner union of some kind. So, you know when I was telling you how the wise crone or the wise woman that we're all seeking is inside. It's the same thing with the Lover's card, right? There's a union of opposites. There's a union of, however you want to say this, the masculine and the feminine. um, that can happen internally. And what that does is if you've experienced this, I can't speak for some reason, you already know it's just an entirely different world that you're occupying. If this is something that started to happen to you, or if it's something that's like kind of floating, you can see, you can feel that the possibility of it is sort of like right here, and you're like sort of grasping at it. I would say don't grasp, but the rest of these cards very much felt like advice for someone who feels like this is sort of like within their grasp, and they just don't quite feel like it's dropped into their body yet. Okay, so the first card is Elder Otter, and it says play with joy. And this is so important because in a romantic relationship, like it should be fun. It should be experimental. You should be able to explore. That goes the same way with all of this stuff. You should be able to play. So no matter how deep you get into like the shadow work, um, it's good to take things seriously, but it's also important to play. So if anyone's been telling you anything related to you're not serious enough, you're not taking this seriously, you laugh too much. You shouldn't be laughing at that. This is serious. Okay, guys, the Buddha is laughing. So take that one into consideration. My mom pointed that out to me a couple of times recently. And it should be obvious, right? Because we sort of see him um, like that. And that's a part of it. That's a part of this divine union is allowing yourself to play. And I think that you already know that, by the way. I don't think that I actually like you needed me to tell you that, but I'm just going to tell you what the cards say. See, next we have Elder Loon, Deep Dive. Deep dive. Okay, so this goes back to just the paradoxical nature of everything, including humans. You do have to dive deep. I'm going to take this opportunity to read to you a very quick quote from this book by someone named Standing Bear, who I met recently. His colonial name, which he publishes his books under, is Wayne William Snellgrove. But I flipped to this page, and it relates, okay? To embrace the balance we want to live in, we must first embrace the unbalance. To embrace the healing, we must embrace what is unhealed. Okay. And that's, in my opinion, that's not to say that there's like this end result where you're fully healed. I don't know. That could be a thing. Um, the pursuit of perfection is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the willingness to go deep and stay within those depths when it is safe for you and to be with what comes up. And you'll find that it's always worth it. It's the perfect time to do that, by the way, right now, because it's Scorpio season, y'all. So get in there. Get in there. Um, Scorpio is one of those signs that is on the cusp of a seasonal change, generally speaking. And so there is that, like, if you're in the northern hemisphere, there's that death and dying of autumn. And it's just one of those natural cycles. We have all kinds of fun days coming up. All Saints Day or All Souls Day, the Day of the Dead, you know, the veil, guys, the veil is thinning. So go deep and be with that if you can, if it is safe for you. Next, we have the elder owl. Trust your inner knowing. Trust your inner knowing. Okay, so what I'm going to say about the owl, um, right away, they're like Athena, the moon, intuition, the inner knowing. There's a difference between like, it's good to be open to information, ideas, other people's things. Um, and at a certain point, you will, you'll develop kind of this discernment and this intuition related to what you can then close yourself off to or what is not for you. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that other person is wrong or what they have to share or say or do isn't valuable, but knowing what is for you and what is not for you in the new age, we tend to want more options, limitless possibilities. But when you narrow the path, you can go further on the path. And yeah, tap into that owl medicine, y'all. It's so good. Very confronting. Very good. Okay, another confronting archetype here. And see that moon in the background? There we got another one related to intuition. And Elder Spider says, weave your medicine. Right? So the spider is a polarizing animal, and they weave a web that only they can weave. And it is an art, and it often goes unappreciated. It is critical to the functioning of our ecosystems. But the only people who notice it are the people who slow down and the people who are comfortable enough with the darkness to notice the beauty in such a thing. So if you ever feel othered by someone who doesn't seem to notice your unique magic, especially if you are weaving in threads that involve the things that you have brought back from the underworld, um, keep weaving your web. Elder Thunderbird, reclaim your power. Yeah. I am getting literally call back your power. Have any of y'all done anything to do with soul retrieval or just simply calling your power and your energy back to yourself? If you're someone who has mentally looped around with, why did I let them do that to me? Why did I? Um, call your power back. And if possible, again, the moon, intuition back here. If possible, if relevant, weave this into a weekly ritual, a monthly ritual. Can you do it monthly? Because eventually maybe you don't have to do this at all. But yeah, ask yourself if you could benefit from calling back your power. And this can be financially, this can be energetically, this can be just mentally, emotionally, physically. Elder duck, follow the flow. I do like to think of the flow as sort of related to play as well. So sometimes the flow brings me somewhere I didn't expect, but I can use that moment to be playful and just be like, okay, this is where we're going. What can I do with this? Elder Moose, honor your lineage. It's a good time to connect with the past. Like Scorpio season, heading into the darker months of the year. If you've been thinking about like doing genealogy, ancestor veneration, no matter how you're coming at it from, whether you're more interested in personal collective healing or you're interested in doing witchy things, connecting with the ancestors is a really good way to follow that thread and see where it leads you, because it will lead you to more depth of whatever it is that you're doing. And if you work with the ancestors, you already know that. So this is a message for whoever is thinking about potentially working with the ancestors. Do it. That's all I have to say. Elder Muskrat, believe in yourself. Yeah. Sometimes the culture likes to tell us like, who do you think you are? You know who you are, okay? And you have since you were literally a child. That's the cool part. So yeah, believe in yourself. Do the things that you know you're supposed to be doing. And you know you're supposed to be doing them because you have like this magnetic draw to them. That's for a reason. Most of y'all already know that. Elder Blue Jay, speak up. Yeah, speak up. The Blue Jay is so freaking loud. I was noticing the Blue Jay so much this year. Just their sound just sounds like they're complaining about everything. I'm not really sure. But speak up. Speak up. I know a lot of you guys, and you guys have really interesting shit to say. And when you do speak up, I'm back there like, yes. And I think that, the world could only benefit from the medicine that y'all have to bring. So I agree with that. Speak up. And sometimes it can be uncomfortable. We feel like we said too much. And sometimes we did say too much or whatever. But is that really a thing? Like, of course, we want to be conscientious of everyone's time and energy and stuff like that. But at the same time, like, if you've spent a lot of your life silenced or silencing yourself or whatever, like, just speak up. A lot of these people are not worried about how much. If you're someone who's conscientious of other people's time and energy, you are likely not the person who has to worry about whether or not you're speaking speaking up too much. You know, if you're someone who cuts people off, maybe try not to do that. I'm pretty sure that's something that you're aware of, though, and that you've already been working on for some time. But again, say what needs to be said. Um, in the context, like wherever it is that yeah, whatever situation you find yourself in, just assess for that situation. Because a lot of the situations you guys are in, you should say something, if you can. If you can. Okay, so here is what I'm getting for sort of like an overall energy of the this reading here before we close out. We have regeneration. And so, I see this as healing. I see this as restoring what once was, or possibly even generating something new. bioremediation is coming through. This tree here is sort of growing out of molten rock. So just like the fertility that comes after a volcano eruption, right? And, it came out sort of upside down. So I don't know if for some of you there's like some hesitancy or insecurity about like, could it even be possible? Could it even be possible for something so beautiful to grow out of what is so incompatible with life? So coming out of this place that is just, yeah, incompatible with life. See, the tree is growing kind of crooked. That's something you'll find in a lot of stories. There's the crooked tree, but it's still just somehow glorious and beautiful and magnificent in its own way. Um, okay, so yeah, this is maybe what's happening, kind of like the path that you're on. This one is speaking to me as sort of like it's not a block, but it's just something that's happening. So it says round and round, round and round. And if my camera's not that good, sorry, y'all. If you notice, like there's a face in here, and he's sort of just like spinning. He's really caught up in that air element 5D stuff where you're just cycling around and there's so many options. There's so much potential. There's infinite potential. But unless you choose what of that potential you're going to go after, you're you're not, you haven't found your path yet. So there's that what I was saying earlier about the narrow path. Um, if you're interested in diving deep on this, if you feel like you are constantly cycling, you are constantly thinking about all the potentials, Saturn helps with this a lot, Saturn, and actually Venus too. So if you're scared of Saturn, go to Venus. And if you want to know more about that, please ask me because I will tell you everything I know about that. Um, between worlds, between worlds. So that's exactly like, okay, to feel like you're constantly on the cusp of something can be, I'm not saying that it is for you, but it can be so frustrating, right? To feel like something is just within your grasp, but you can't quite pull it in. A lot of it has to do with this never-ending cycling energy. So making a choice is good. And if you have a fear of making the wrong choice, Saturn and Venus have medicine for you if you have a fear of making the wrong choice. I'm going to say that like you can't make the wrong choice. So if you don't, if you're not interested in a deep dive and you just want the overview, you can't make the wrong choice because regardless of what choice you choose, even if it is the wrong choice, you'll be led somewhere else. But making a choice is that first, step to finding your own path. And this feeling of being between worlds, like on one side, it's gray and it's dark and something is missing. And on the other side, it's colorful. The flamingo is connected to the world. There's actually a crown up here, and the crown is radiating out light. If those symbols mean anything to you. And then what is this over here? There's a hummingbird. Yeah, there's a hummingbird. And there are 3 blue butterflies and the number 3. So if you are a numerology chakra symbology person. Yeah, those will I'm just not going to deep dive, but this moment here where you are thinking of ending the constant looping and taking that step. And you already know that on the other side of this, it's going to be a beautiful thing. Um, so if there's fear arising within you about the choice, about making the wrong choice, about something here, yeah, the advice is to stay with that. And I think it's great that we talked about the archetype of Cancer, because it really is one of the more demonized in our culture, and um, the medicine is there for all of us. Okay, so I'm gonna end it there. And if you have a question, like I said, let's talk about it. What did you notice as well? Really interested if you have anything else that came up, like any synchronicities or whatever. And I'll do this again sometime soon. Bye, y'all.